Another breaking story. These are the first pictures we're seeing of daylight. This is absolute destruction. This is in South Florida.
There's got to be people in those that were there in these units. I mean, it's like, what's going on?
This was a tragedy unlike others that we've seen, just because you would not think a building would just collapse in the middle of the night.
Although search crews are remaining hopeful they will find survivors in this 3-story tall pile of debris, the day certainly did not start with good news.
Our hearts and minds are always with those we've lost and with the families who are grieving.
We're going to keep working and we're going to keep praying. That's what this community does. That's what's gotten us through hurricanes. That's what's gotten us through every tragedy we've ever experienced. Our togetherness, our sense of community.
"98. That is the number of people killed when a 12-story beachfront gave way at 1:22 in the morning on June 24th of 2021. 98, including fathers, mothers, grandfathers, grandmothers, and children. 98, including people not just from the United States, but as far away as Canada, Argentina, and Australia. That number will forever be on the minds of many, along with questions as to how, why, and what's next. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Tammy Fields. Tonight, we hope to answer all of those questions and more while taking the time to honor the lives lost. It has now been a full year since the Champlain Towers South condominium came down. It was a tragic event that a community still mourns today. Spectrum News' Asher Wildman takes us there 1 year later.
Medical, go ahead.
It all comes flooding back in. It's all there.
Here's your guys here. The D8 in Collins.
I jumped in my car and I went down there to the site, and it was surreal.
We have a 13-story building with most of the building gone. Building that's left, we still have people standing upstairs that don't need to be evacuated.
I was at home. I heard a bunch of sirens on Collins Ave going north, and I just didn't know what was going on.
I have an 18-year-old daughter who was out with her friends at a movie. She was on her way home. She gave me a call and said, you know, she was frantic. Dad, a building just came down. We're in front. We're by 88. The building just came down. And I'm on 90th on the corner over there, right off Harding. And I said, I didn't hear anything. There's no sirens. Like, there was no bang. Like, it's like, I'm telling you, we're stuck. They were stuck in a cloud of smoke. They couldn't make it home.
Charles Burkett was the mayor of Surfside at that time. He says he'll never forget the 2 a.m. wake-up call from his chief of police.
I was tired, and but I felt like it was something I needed to do. So I was going to do it. I was going to go out there and just make sure it wasn't a bad situation. That's what I was trying to do, rule it out. And of course, it was a bad situation.
A quiet residential beach town suddenly was in front of the nation as search and rescue efforts began.
The fire department started coming, and you start hearing the screaming of people coming out of the building, just crying, screaming. It was really chaotic. At a certain point, there really wasn't anything we can do. You know, we were just getting in the way of the first responders that were coming to try to do something.
By the time the sun had come up and the rescue mission went from hours to days,
we got boxes of food,
members of the community,
pillows, blankets,
tried to do what they could to help.
The only thing at that time that you could give these people, anybody, survivors, family of survivors, people that were just struck by this horrific reality, Jewish and non-Jewish, fathers, mothers, brothers, everybody. The only thing you could give them was kindness.
All types of dry goods, toiletries, clothing, socks, water, from every community in the area. Everyone stepped up.
A nearby kosher restaurant in the predominantly Jewish town offered countless meals and hundreds of pounds of kosher cooked meats.
This is something I can do. This is in my wheelhouse. I'm not going to be digging through rubble, but I can serve people food. I can open up the doors. I can make it a home here where people can come and feel comfortable.
Put up the link there and help us, and it's going directly to the families.
Others fundraised.
Our website was called Miami Tragedy Fund, and we raised $1.5 million. We figured it was going to be a lot of funerals, and from the funerals, we figured we wanted to try to help as much as possible, and getting our hands dirty wasn't an option. They shut down the whole area. We figured fundraising would be the best next option to help pay for whatever the families were going through.
And others gave time. Lots of it.
So in the way beginning, it was a lot of people from the community and neighboring communities that were just bringing carloads, truckloads of everything. And it was very fast paced. Eventually, it just started, more and more started pouring in.
1 year later, Surfside has a missing piece on 88th Street, but it's a piece that will never be forgotten.
You go there now and people are reading these names, they're remembering it, they're seeing what happened as opposed to what it was the last year. It really makes a difference until we can build some sort of memorial there.
The reality of that event has kind of etched a mark in this community forever. It's not something that just happens, something that remains as an identity for some reason.
I think that what we'll be remembered for was the magnificent symphony of compassion and effort and dedication that we exhibited in dealing with this tragedy.
As you can see, the town of Surfside doing their best to move forward as the search for answers continues.
We still want this negligence to be in black and white, so we know what happened and not to happen again.
Next on Spectrum News, we hear from family members still coping after losing loved ones. We'll also take a look at the steps being taken to ensure a disaster like this never happens again. Surfside 1 year later returns after the break.
Even though this is a situation that I don't understand, we don't understand, why is this happening? We have to get through it because that's what our loved ones would want.
Those words spoken 1 year ago by Michelle Guerra. At the time, Michelle, like many, was holding out hope that her father, Gil, who you see here, would be among the survivors of the Surfside condo collapse. Instead, police identified his body on July 10th. The body of his wife would be found 2 days earlier. There is no clear indication on when or if families of Surfside will ever get a definitive answer of what in fact caused the Champlain Towers South to collapse. Spectrum News' Asher Wildman spent time with several families while in Miami-Dade County who still to this day are looking for closure.
Ronit Nybriff experienced what no parent ever should.
It's very hard to come out here. It's very hard.
Her son Elon was born on September 11th of 1999. All Ronit knows about her son's death is that he was only 21 years old when it happened.
I will not put the 24th of June specifically because I don't know if that's the day he actually passed.
The past year has not been easy.
Of course, I have beautiful memories of my son. Unfortunately, because of the way it occurred and because of the court and everything that's going on, we haven't been able to turn a new page.
This is Elon. Not only does Ronit have hundreds of home movies and photos of her son, she also has the last text he ever sent her, letting her know he made it to his girlfriend's, sending a photo of the two of them from the Champlain Towers South elevator. The next morning, after hearing the news, Ronit did what she could.
We did call, and it did ring, and then it stopped ringing after. We tried so many times that afterwards it was just going straight to his voicemail, but it did ring.
Over the past year, Elon's parents have each grieved differently.
I see him every day. I don't go to my office, I go to his room.
He grieves very differently than I grieve, in the sense that he spends time in my son's room the entire day. He stopped working 11 months ago, and he spends time in Ilan's room. I walk by Ilan's room. I can't get myself to be in there.
And a reason why the past year has been such a challenge is because they still don't know what everyone wants to know. How and why did this happen?
It was not an act of God. It was pure negligence.
I don't know who to be angry at. I don't. There's so many fingers being pointed. There's 45 years of incompetence and negligence.
We still want this negligence to be in black and white, so we know what happened and not to happen again.
98 lives lost. Ilan Naibrif was one of them.
I'm so happy because I have the best friends, the best education, the best family, and the best. I can't think of a fourth one, so it's super anticlimactic, but life's amazing.
How did this happen? It is one question being continually asked by Floridians and even from people across the world. And that question that usually follows, how can we make sure it won't happen again? Right after the disaster, lawmakers, they promised to do everything possible to create a solution. But 8 months later, none of their proposals made it through Florida's legislative session. Last month, state lawmakers, they did pass a new building safety law during a special session mostly focused on homeowners insurance. But is it enough to keep Floridians safe? Spectrum News' Molly Durick went looking for answers.
Joel Figueroa Vallines is a forensic structural engineer. Right now, he's showing me a 3D model his team created of the condo building that collapsed in Surfside last year.
So the structure really doesn't stand a chance if it has little redundancy once that first floor collapsed.
Joel was a key part of Florida's brand new condo safety law. He was chosen to join a selective coalition of structural engineers who investigated the Champlain Towers collapse and made recommendations to prevent future tragedies. Joel's team built their Surfside model using original blueprint plans from 1979.
In this particular part of the building, there weren't any beams on that floor.
Joel says keeping high-rise buildings safe requires all three things: a good, strong design, a good construction program led by a qualified engineer, and a consistent maintenance cycle. That last part, maintenance, was up until now the missing piece of the puzzle.
If those smaller issues don't get addressed through proper maintenance or through proper periodic inspections, then those issues can magnify and become larger problems.
Out of Florida's 10 million housing units, about 15% are condos. About half of those condo units are in South Florida, but Central Florida's home to 13%, or more than 200,000 of them. Until Senate Bill 4D passed this May, Florida didn't have a statewide inspection requirement for high-rise condo buildings. Now that it does, some are worried it might be too big a change for condo associations to handle.
It's going to be a very tough hill to climb.
Anastasia Kolodzik completes reserve studies, basically helping condo associations like the one in Surfside budget high enough assessments to keep some money in reserve for necessary maintenance projects and repairs. But up until now, Florida didn't require condos to actually keep any money in reserve. SB 4D changes that.
It's sort of like a tough love approach to the associations. I think it's a very good thing that they are being forced to bring their reserves up to speed and bring them up to full funding.
But she's not sure the new law gives condo associations enough time. Before 2025, all Florida condos 3 stories or higher must have a structural integrity inspection done and have enough money in reserve to fully fund all necessary repairs. Joel says it's a crucial first step to keep Florida buildings standing strong.
If you don't feel good, you go to the doctor. And if you ignore it for a while, your condition may get worse. Buildings are no different. Buildings age as well. And over time, and especially in Florida, where continuous cycles of hurricanes hitting the state, even though those buildings perform over time, they need care as well. I think it's a good starting point.
In Orlando, Molly Durick, Spectrum News.
It is a starting point for a long-term solution. As engineers and condo associations in Florida start navigating this new law, There is also work being done to have a permanent memorial in place at the site of the collapse.
It needs to be a memorial. It's not a question as to how it will be. It needs to be a memorial.
Ahead on Spectrum News, we check in on the efforts being made to honor the victims. Surfside, 1 year later, returns after the break. This evening, we have heard a lot from families that lost loved ones in Surfside, elected officials, and even engineers. But now we want to check in on a group of individuals that worked tirelessly for weeks following the collapse. The hundreds of first responders who rushed to Surfside also had their lives changed forever that day. Spectrum News' Angie Andrews checks with task force members 1 year later.
Literally by hand, pulling rocks out, looking through the voids, getting the cameras into the voids.
As a first responder, Alex Rawls-Novo has taught himself to detach from a situation, disassociate even, anything it takes to get the job done. But when looking for survivors, that wasn't possible, and the hope of finding someone alive kept him going.
That's the whole reason we do it. I couldn't do it if I didn't hope, you know.
Rawls-Novo spent a week in Surfside working 12-hour shifts on that pile, a part of Central Florida's Task Force 4. Alongside him, group leader Garrett Winkowski.
And then you had 13 floors crumbled down into about 3 stories.
What they saw when the sun rose on that collapsed condo was something that changed them both.
Again, this is probably a very generous example of the amount of room I had. And then you fill this with every single thing that you put in your house. You're talking a 12-foot, tall apartment squeezed into that deep.
They used canines to detect human remains, then buckets and tools to start digging out those areas.
I still remember the names of people's documents that I found.
But some of the lessons they learned in Surfside, they took home to Central Florida.
I would say some of the biggest takeaways we got from this was our types of training that we do, the funding aspect of it, the communication's always a real big one.
Because of this, the different task force groups will get state funding for new equipment and some additional training. And Central Florida, mental health resources for first responders has taken priority.
A lot of the junior guys and girls will come on, and they want to be that, solid, responsible person that nothing can waver them. But as the senior person, I've seen this and I've done this, and I need to make sure that I show them that it's okay to recognize, when you're at the point where you need help.
Man, it really just puts me like it was just yesterday that I was there.
Then across I-4.
We're going to cut here, we're going to cut here, make holes here.
As a part of Task Force 3, Hillsborough County firefighter Adam Hayward took on one of the most dangerous jobs. He's a former Bucks player, and he's strong, so he used the jackhammer, at times tethered to just a small piece of rebar.
And it's just kind of stuff where you're like, all right, I got to figure it out because it's got to work.
But the physical toll, he says, didn't compare to the emotional one. Hayward has 3 little girls.
I think the night we found that firefighter's daughter, that was very hard because, to see a father carry his child out, it was tough.
And firefighters, they're task-oriented people, and this wasn't a task that could be completed.
You find that void space, it lights everybody up because there's a chance.
It was up to Hayward and many of the guys on Task Force 3 to figure out how to find leverage points and create anchor systems to find ways to wedge open spaces safely. Amazing, he said, that no one got hurt.
You saw family members were wanting us to hurry and rush, but it's something you can't just start picking up concrete.
Hayward says his team learned so many lessons in Surfside, and now they're receiving more advanced training because of it, like how to use sonar and classes in heavy rigging.
You can't just do it once. All this stuff is perishable. If you don't remember, how to set up the whole system.
He says should another disaster like this happen, he'll stop everything to be there and bring the lessons he learned in Surfside along with him. Reporting for Spectrum News, I'm Angie Andrews.
The building that was once the Champlain Tower South may be gone, but its space, it still remains. And as our Spectrum News' Asher Wildman shows us, there are efforts underway here in Florida and as far away as New York to use that site to memorialize the people that were lost on June 24th.
A picture says it all.
On June 24th of 2021, Martin Langesfeld lost a sister.
She was the light to any room she walked into. Her smile made everyone smile.
Pablo Langesfeld lost a daughter.
This is a never-ending nightmare. I don't think it will ever stop to be a horror movie.
Nikki Langesfeld was 26 and living at the time in Unit 804. She and her newlywed husband, Louis Adolvanik, both lost their lives on June 24th. Gone but not forgotten, a mission this father and son are now working on for Nikki, Louis, and 96 others.
When I come to these commission meetings, my main goal is to make the world and the community not forget what happened on June 24th.
Over the past year, Martin in particular has been a regular at Surfside commission meetings.
So these are the measurements.
He also meets frequently with the new mayor to discuss the memorial he would like to see on 88th and Collins, where his sister lost her life. When you walk the half-a-mile town, it's impossible to miss the glaring, eerie, empty spot where the Champlain Tower South once stood. Rather than being just a traffic stop with names on a fence, the Langesfelds want to see more.
It needs to be a memorial. It's not a question as to how it will be. It needs to be a memorial.
It's not just in Surfside the Langesfelds are looking to for help. Aside from calling legislatures daily,
no answer.
He has been able to connect with Monica Eichen.
We need to honor those lives that died a horrific death in that site.
The founder of September's Mission, a nationally recognized nonprofit organization that was devoted to building a 9/11 memorial. Martin gathers as much input, ideas, and suggestions from Eichen after she wanted to memorialize the site she lost her husband at in the South Tower.
This is where we find solace, comfort, reflection, honor, and peace. So in the heart of the lower Manhattan, which they said would be impossible to achieve, we achieved it. We have a world-class memorial museum today.
It took 10 years for the 9/11 memorial to be built and opened. Martin is determined to see a memorial in Surfside, no matter how long it may take.
This is my life now, and until that happens, I'm not going to stop.
The biggest obstacle right now for Martin and others trying to get a memorial is the lot where the building collapsed. It has been sold. It is now under contract. A location in the city of Surfside, and funding for a potential memorial is still being discussed. I want to thank Asher, Angie, and Molly for bringing us these important and heartfelt stories this evening. And I want to thank you, our viewers at home, for tuning in. To the families and the residents of Surfside, our hearts will always be with you. Until next time, stay safe.